Okay, so today we are diving into something that sounds like, honestly, it sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Okay.
Microsoft,
Mm.
artificial intelligence, and the revival of a nuclear reactor at Three Mile Island.
Wow.
You heard that right. Remember Three Mile Island?
Yeah.
The name that, for many, became synonymous with nuclear accidents back in 1979?
Right.
Well, buckle up because things just got interesting.
It's certainly a headline that grabs your attention.
Yeah, to say the least. So Microsoft is teaming up with Constellation Energy to bring TMI's Unit 1 reactor back online.
Okay.
But, and here's the kicker, they're not just bringing it back, they're giving it a serious tech upgrade,
Wow.
renaming it the Crane Clean Energy Center. And Microsoft's massive power purchase agreement is what is making this whole thing possible.
It's important to note that this isn't an isolated incident, though. We're seeing a trend here, with other nuclear plants like Palisades in Michigan also coming back to life.
So it's not just a one-off, there's something bigger at play. But why now? Nuclear power has been struggling for years, with plants shutting down left and right. What's changed?
Well, one word, demand. The demand for energy, especially clean energy, is skyrocketing. And it's not just coming from our homes and businesses.
You're talking about the data centers, right? The ones powering all those AI platforms everyone's suddenly talking about.
Exactly. These data centers are incredibly energy hungry, and companies like Microsoft are under pressure to power them cleanly.
Okay.
And that's where this seemingly out of left field project at Three Mile Island comes in. It's a fascinating convergence of energy demands, technological advancements, and the urgent need for carbon-free power.
So what you're saying is my late-night AI art generation sessions are having real-world energy consequences?
Oh.
I guess I never really thought about it like that.
It's easy to forget that our digital lives have a physical footprint. But the truth is, every search, every email, every AI-generated image requires energy. And as our reliance on these technologies grows, so does our need for reliable carbon-free power. And that brings us to the heart of the matter,
Yeah.
the technology itself.
Okay, so we've got this energy-hungry AI and a nuclear plant coming back online.
Yeah.
But what's different this time?
Yeah.
The sources keep mentioning this natrium reactor.
Right.
It's not what you might think.
Yeah, you're right. It's not your grandfather's nuclear reactor. The natrium technology is what makes this project really interesting.
Okay.
It's designed to address some of the biggest concerns about traditional nuclear power,
Okay.
particularly safety and waste.
The sources mention liquid sodium coolant.
Right?
That sounds a little unnerving, to be honest.
Okay.
Isn't sodium, highly reactive?
It is. But that actually works to its advantage in this case. Liquid sodium is incredibly efficient at transferring heat, and it remains liquid at much higher temperatures than water.
Right.
This means the reactor can operate at lower pressure,
Okay.
significantly reducing the risk of a meltdown.
So it's like a pressure cooker that's less likely to explode?
That's a good way to put it.
Okay.
Additionally, the natrium reactor uses a process called natural convection to circulate the liquid sodium.
Okay.
Think of it like a lava lamp.
Okay.
The heat itself drives the circulation, eliminating the need for complex and potentially vulnerable pumps.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about this fast reactor thing?
Right.
How is that different?
In simple terms, a fast reactor uses a different type of fuel and operates at a higher energy level than traditional reactors.
Okay.
The beauty of this is that it can actually consume existing nuclear waste as fuel,
Wow.
potentially solving one of the biggest headaches of the nuclear industry.
Wow.
It's like recycling on a massive energy-producing scale.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But what about the intermittent nature of renewable energy sources? What happens when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing?
Yeah.
Can the natrium reactor keep up?
That's where another cool piece of tech comes in. Molten salt energy storage.
Okay.
The natrium reactor can store excess heat in a molten salt solution, which acts like a giant battery.
Okay.
This stored heat can then be used to generate electricity on demand, even when the reactor itself is operating at a lower output.
This means that unlike traditional nuclear, which is always on, this plant could act more like a giant battery,
Right?
smoothing out the bumps in renewable energy supply, a potentially huge deal for the grid.
Precisely. It allows for greater flexibility and makes nuclear power a more viable partner for renewable energy sources.
Okay.
So instead of competing, these technologies can actually work together to create a more resilient and carbon-free energy grid.
It sounds like Microsoft might be onto something here.
Yeah.
Powering the future of AI with a new generation of nuclear technology.
Right.
But this being 3 Mile Island, I'm guessing not everyone is thrilled about this whole nuclear revival. It's interesting that you mentioned that because one of our sources points out that this project isn't just about fancy new technology.
Oh, okay.
It's also about kind of like rewriting a narrative.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We can't talk about 3 Mile Island without acknowledging the shadow of 1979.
Right.
The accident, even though it happened decades ago, it left an undeniable mark on public perception of nuclear power.
And that makes this whole project even more fascinating, right? It's
Yeah.
almost like they're trying to do the impossible,
Right.
convince people that nuclear power can be safe, clean, and, dare I say, cool.
Right.
But how do you actually change hearts and minds when it comes to something as potentially anxiety-inducing as nuclear power,
Yeah.
especially in a community that's already been through so much?
It's a challenge, for
Yeah.
sure. The Nature article that we have here
Right.
highlights the scale of this undertaking.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about building a new plant from scratch.
Yeah.
This is about resurrecting a reactor that's been dormant for years, and that brings its own set of hurdles.
It's not as simple as just flipping the on switch again, is it?
Not at all. There are rigorous safety checks, extensive inspections, and potentially even replacing components that have been sitting idle for decades. And then there's the human element, right? The people working on this project need to have specialized expertise, especially given the unique aspects of the Natrium technology.
Yeah, it sounds like this project is as much about pushing technological boundaries as it is about overcoming historical baggage.
You could say that. And it's not just about Pennsylvania. The whole world is watching. If this project is successful, it could have ripple effects, potentially sparking a global resurgence in nuclear power.
Wow.
But, let's not forget about the local impact.
Right,
Constellation Energy has been touting the economic benefits for Pennsylvania.
right.
Thousands of jobs, billions in tax revenue.
Yeah, it sounds like a win-win.
On the surface, sure.
Yeah.
But as with any large-scale project, we need to look beyond the flashy headlines.
Right.
Are these new jobs or existing jobs just being shifted around? And how much of that economic benefit will actually stay in the local community?
It's a really good point. And then there's the million-dollar question. How do the people living in the shadow of 3 Mile Island, how do they feel about all of this?
Right.
We have that poll suggesting surprisingly strong support for the reactor restart among Pennsylvanians. But is that really reflective of how people in Middletown feel?
Right.
It makes you wonder. It's one thing to say you support nuclear power in the abstract, but it's another thing entirely when it's being built in your backyard, right?
Yeah.
Especially when that backyard happens to be the site of one of the most well-known nuclear accidents in history.
It's a complex situation, to say the least. There's the potential for clean energy, the promise of economic growth, and the undeniable anxiety that comes with living in the shadow of a nuclear past.
A lot to unpack, to say the least. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with more than a few questions. Can this ambitious project at 3 Mile Island truly usher in a new era of nuclear power? Will it deliver on its promise of clean energy and economic prosperity? And perhaps most importantly, can it heal the wounds of the past and build a more sustainable future for the community that lives with its legacy? We'd love to share your thoughts. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.